Our first question is from Mark Lovatt, and he asks, what has Mark Robins been doing to keep up the momentum and belief within the squad during this period?
Interesting question. It's really difficult because everything's stopped. The players are furloughed, so we can't do anything. It is something that that you think about all the time. You know, how the players are doing, what they're up to. They've had programs and plans previously before they went into furlough, so they'll have been doing some work, and I know that that's the case because we can follow that. And they've been working hard, really. On the back of that, we've put things on for them, but you can't make them do anything. So it's a case of the voluntary stuff, and there's still people, there's an uptake for that. So they're still working, and as we speak, there's a session going on now. So that's all you can do. And, you know, ultimately we're trying to get on with various things, various planning, and, you know, hopefully we can get back sooner rather than later. But thanks for the question. Hopefully everybody's safe, and thanks for allowing us to put this on for you.
Next question is from Matt Cowley, Jim Lindsay, Callum, Moseley. They've all asked a similar question. And you sort of answered it just there. Are you still giving the players a training fitness routine to complete at home, and how closely are you monitoring that?
Yeah, we were prior to the furlough situation, but clearly you can't work. And when you've been furloughed, I think that's the key thing. Voluntarily, some of them are doing some sessions, and we are keeping a close eye on everything that they do. We talk on a regular basis because that's important. Mental health is important. There is an avenue for them to access things for that if they feel they need to do so, and they're aware of that, players and staff, in fairness. But everybody seems okay. Everybody's in good spirits. They're just raring to go, desperate to get back to work, as everybody is.
Question from John Burns. How long would you like to have the players back training before return?
We need a month. You know, I think when you're looking at, it's been 5 weeks, over 5 weeks now since we last did anything together. You know, the longer that goes on, the more time you need. If you look at pre-season, generally, if you get a full pre-season, it's 7 weeks, 8 weeks. So you're getting into that territory now, and then you're looking at a 5-week, 3-day pre-season. So you're looking towards that. I think ultimately what we've got to do is be ready to go when we get things lifted, and you know, that's the case. We're ready to go as soon as these the lockdown's lifted slightly, and you know, everybody's guessing on quite a lot of things at the moment because there isn't enough information for anybody to be able to plan. But the plan just moves down the line. So yeah, we're ready to go as soon as these lockdowns are lifted. And listening to government and EFL are in contact all the time, and or once a week, I should say. The rest of it is speculation. You know, the things that you look at on the Sky app or BBC or whatever. Some of it is factual, but a lot of it is just speculation because nobody knows.
Gavin from Nuneaton has asked, how much emphasis do you place on the players for eating the right foods, injury prevention, mental health, getting the right amount of rest in between games?
Yeah, good question. Thanks, Gavin. I think that the training regime, the training program that we put in place was comprehensive. The amount of work that they did came to us and came back to us, and we could see exactly what they were doing. One or two of them were playing five-a-sides in the early days, which had to be curbed. Young lads wanting to play and wanting to carry on, and people thinking that things were normal, which was stopped at, as soon as we found out. But that's the tracking that we're able to do. Diet was changed because clearly they don't need as many carbs. So that was changed. They were sent out comprehensive menus and recipes and guidelines on how to cook and things like that. So that was all sent out. There's access to mental health, as I've outlined before. So anybody that's feeling in it with a low mood or getting depressed, and I think everybody feels that, you know, this scenario is very, very unusual. People are in different situations. I think people have got to keep themselves busy. We tried to give them a diary prior to furlough. so they could follow some sort of routine. I think the worst thing that they can do is probably stay in bed for too long. You need to be up and about and get a routine going. I think that's for everybody. Make sure that there's things around the house. I'm sure jobs that need doing around the house or apartment or wherever people live. There's those things that got the upkeep of property and things like that. You can do that. Clearly, there's normal life going on inside the house, and things need pain, and there's obviously worry and stress around that. But we've tried to cover every base. We're ready to go back as soon as we're told we're allowed to, and if I can get back, and if you look at it, they're talking about the 16th of May at this point. If that's sooner, then fantastic. If not, then we have to reassess and adjust our timings. But we're in contact with them most days. I've spoken to a number of players on a number of occasions just to make sure that they're okay. I have them coming in and letting us know about their wellness and the whereabouts, because that's still got to be done. We give the EFL information on the players and where they're at, in terms of their health, whether they've got symptoms of coronavirus or not. We've had, there's a couple being ill, but haven't had it because there was a couple that had tests early on. We managed to pay for some tests at that point, but this is really early on before testing became an issue. We were told that we were going to have some testing kits done, but ultimately there isn't any sort of reliable tests for antibodies or antibody tests at this stage, and those are the things that we're looking for to try and change the game.
Question from Chris Baker. Do you think that the break could be a blessing in disguise? For example, more time for Jody Jones to get fit, Wes Gibello with his recovery?
I think that, it's not a blessing in disguise, that's for sure. I think that this is horrendous, and when you look at it, it's futile really talking about football. And when people are losing their lives, and so many of them are losing their lives, I think that's that takes precedence over everything, whilst you're keeping an eye on what needs to be done. This is unprecedented. Nobody knows. Nobody's lived through it before in terms of this, in terms of my lifetime. And clearly, we are looking for leadership from the people that are running government, running the country, and also then that feeds into the powers that be, the EFL, the Premier League, the Football Association, all those bodies, the governing bodies that we're looking for information from. So we can only do so much. So those players will continue, obviously, to work. They can't go to gyms. They haven't got access. We're not a club that have been able to sort of deliver gym equipment to houses like the Premier League teams or some Premier League teams had done before lockdown. That would have been ideal. Some of them have got gyms of sorts, but it's very, very difficult. They're going to have to use their imagination as to what they've got at home. So you see a lot of things like that. We've given them a lot of information prior to the furloughing, clearly of what we need them to do and what they want them to do and how to do it. So ultimately, no, I wouldn't say it's a blessing in disguise, but it will give certainly Wes time to heal without being or feeling under pressure, because his was a specific type of injury that needed time to recover. So from that point of view, yes, it will help him and one or two of the others with the longer term injuries. I think Jody was really getting to the stage where he needed to be on the pitch and feeling that competition, really, the competition element of training. So from his point of view, it's come at a bad time for everybody, but clearly we're talking about something that really takes second place over everybody's health, and hopefully we can get back as soon as we possibly can do, and everybody is healthy.
One thing, this is from Luke Brierley, one thing that seems to have made a huge difference this season is the team's togetherness and camaraderie. How do you ensure that stays in place when players are in isolation?
As I say, it is difficult. The players are good, and again, we're putting things on for them that are the voluntary types of things where they can have some social interactions. They've got that anyway, they do. They speak about things regularly. I think the longer this goes on, it becomes more, I suppose, more normal, but you can get a little bit more frustrated, I suppose. So things are important to keep them as engaged as possible between themselves, because you need that interaction and that social element. So we've tried to give them that as a voluntary thing. So, and people are doing it, they're joining in. And again, conversations on the telephone. I think Zoom's been a blessing in disguise, really, with the fact that you can see each other and you can join in and do things. Have exercise. There was a yoga session the other day. There's another session today. But the important thing for that is it's voluntary, because it has to be at this stage, and it's a social thing. There's a social element for the players and for their sort of well-being and a bit of a social life as well whilst we're in this lockdown.
Question from Bryn Jones. This is more about yourself now. What made you want to become a coach?
Initially, I didn't think about it until I was probably just turned 30, 31, 32, when I was a player at Rotherham, and I organised it was a C licence then. I think it will be level two coaching qualification now for the players at Rotherham, and that was taken on board by quite a number of the players, and we ended up doing a coaching qualification, and that's what started things off. I quite enjoyed it, and that was something that I wanted to pursue in the end, but didn't really know. When I was 17, I was an apprentice. When you're an apprentice or a scholar, you used to and still do a coaching qualification. I'd broken my foot at that point, so I couldn't do it. So I never completed that when I was 17. Had I done so, I think maybe I'd have carried on and done it. And I think it's really important that players, I think even young players, continue to coach, because it gives you an understanding of the workings of the game and the different elements that you have to master to become a really top player, or as good as you can be. So that's what got me into it, really. I was only in my early 30s really before I started to coach, but quickly got to enjoy it.
Along a similar vein, Jeeven Singh asks, what did you learn from Sir Alex Ferguson and others as a player that you've now used in your own managerial career?
I think you've got to be your own person. I don't try and copy anybody. I think that you've got to have your own way, your own style. Everybody's different, and I've tried to be myself throughout my coaching and managerial career. I think that, ultimately, going back to the last one, I think, to see players develop and to see players become first team players, and the journey that they go through to get there is something that I really enjoy, and that doesn't change. Young players breaking into first teams and then staying there and becoming a part of the game is something that I really like and enjoy, and so does Adi. I mean, that's been his background as well, certainly from a young age, from coaching. When he started coaching, and that was no different for me. And Jason Farndon and Luke Tisdale are the same. We like to look at development and developing players, and that's something that happens very, very difficult, but it happens very, very well at Coventry City. So that's something that we're all proud of, and that's what we want to maintain and continue. And also with Sir Alex, I think probably mainly, watching him and the way he came in, and initially it was difficult for him over a few years, the first few years certainly. But what he did do, and what I saw firsthand, was how he dealt with the young players and how he integrated into the team and the squad. Prior to that, it was difficult to break through. United were always a team that would go out and spend, and then things changed, and clearly it was something that I benefited from, but saw firsthand, and that's probably the biggest thing that I learned through my career. And obviously, young players need opportunity, and you've got to give it to them. But when they're ready, my time there was, to look back on. I think probably when I broke through, I was in the team at 18, but it wasn't until I was 20 that I scored goals. And I scored goals 53, 54, 55 a season. In the junior teams and the reserves, but to score my first team goal, it took 2 years, and managers can give up on you in that time. Certainly, especially at a big club, that demands the results. But ultimately, I got an opportunity and had a career from that. So that's the biggest thing I've probably taken from certainly from Sir Alex Ferguson.
Daniel King has asked, if the season were to be finished behind closed doors, would the team play as well as they would when the fans are there?
The game's all about supporters, and I think that's something that that isn't something that everybody relishes. But ultimately, we have to do and be ready to do as we're told. In the meantime, we have to be as ready as we possibly can to move as quickly as we can to get back in and train, and that is, that's the case. Ultimately, you've got to get back in. We've got to do some training, and that will get everybody back together. But I can guarantee you, once this lockdown's lifted, you'll see people running around and trying to get out of the house and trying to get back to as normal as they possibly can, as quickly as they possibly can, because that's how you feel suppressed and you feel that you want to be out and doing what you're trained to do. And I think everybody in the country feels exactly the same way. It's very frustrating, but it's necessary because ultimately people are losing their lives. I think it's something that you have to be mindful of. And whilst it hasn't thankfully affected me at this moment in time, in terms of family and things like that, it's affecting a hell of a lot of people. And, those are the things that we have to be mindful of during this time, and look forward to the time when these restrictions are lifted and we can get back to a bit of normality.
Matt Walsh, Callum, Nicholls, Connor, Rickhuss and several others have all asked, what made you come back to Coventry?
It's a brilliant club. It was, look, the first time I was here, I loved it and didn't want to leave. I really didn't want to leave, even though I ended up going to Huddersfield. It was a decision that I had to take at that time because of circumstances. When I got the opportunity to come back, it was a surprise, and it was a welcome surprise, and one that I felt I looked at the situation and followed the situation closely, and felt that I could help. And thankfully, things have gone pretty well. But ultimately, it was the club, it was the people you work for, and also the supporters that were magnificent with me and have been ever since I came back through the door. And for that, I owe them a great deal, and continue to work for them. And, that takes you back to the behind closed doors thing. The big thing, the big plus, as well as the team, as well as the recruitment, as well as all the work that goes on at the football club, the supporters are the main reason that you do things, and the main reason that people come. That they are so powerful in terms of what they help us achieve. That's why we need everybody to stay healthy, to get back quickly, to do as we're being asked, and we can get back quicker than we would under normal circumstances. I would imagine everybody's wanting the same thing, and to get back playing as quickly as they can, and then to get back watching as quickly as they possibly can do. If it's behind closed doors, then hopefully it's not for too long. And ultimately, we have to look at the survival of Coventry City Football Club moving forward through a really difficult period in its history. And whilst that's true for every club in the pyramid, the pyramid's in danger of collapsing, because there's a lot of teams that won't be able to pay the players' wages throughout this period, whether they take pay cuts or not. It's a very, very difficult time for everybody, not just footballers, for everybody. All our supporters will be feeling it as well.
Jimi Dyer has asked, what is the thing you love the most about managing Coventry City?
I think the whole thing, it's been very difficult, and Mark, because you've been there all the way through it, and it's been a really tough period with everything that had happened previously, and all the historical issues that have been there and sort of blighted things. I think the biggest thing for me is having a vision and a way of working that means that we can make the best of any situation that we're presented with. You have a unique set of circumstances at whatever club that you're at. And there are in our division 23 teams that have 23 different philosophies and ways of doing things. So it's very individual. what I try and do is try and make sure that the club has longevity and a way of operating within the parameters that you set. So, that for me has been really rewarding to see that sort of put into place, developed, and become better and better over time. And the way that the team is playing now, the recruitment that we have in place with a budget that's a mid-table budget in League One is absolutely phenomenal. The fact that we haven't got our stadium situation resolved yet, and the fact that we've played away at St Andrews has been, nothing short of astonishing. The way that the players have adapted and dealt with that. But not only that, the football that they're playing is some of the best football that I've seen, certainly at the level. And there's some good teams in the division. There's no doubt about that. But up to the point where we had the break, we were playing really, really well. The confidence was growing, and that confidence won't have gone away. I think what it does is just tells players that, actually it's really precious what we have, life, first and foremost, but it's precious that what we do, and want to really enjoy that and embrace that when we finally get back. So, that's been the big thing for me. What I really enjoy is developing players, but seeing a plan come into putting that in place within a given set of circumstances and parameters, and seeing it grow. I've got a great staff around me as well who have been instrumental in helping me do that, and they see it too. And it's very, very, very rewarding. And clearly that the supporters that have come and watched, and hopefully when this is all over, it's an opportunity to really come together as a people, as a football club, but as a people in general. And remember this: we've hopefully people come through it. Horrific seeing the numbers coming through on a daily basis, and what you're looking for. I mean, it's horrendous because you're looking for that graph to come down very steeply and stop. So people stop losing their lives in the first instance, so everything can get back to a bit of normality, because I think that's what people need.
Kieran Linney has asked, do you feel this is the best position Rickhuss has been in since being at the club, in terms of structures now in place with recruitment, scouting, etc.?
Yeah, clearly it's been a long journey. We had initially Tommy Widrington came in and helped us recruit for the promotion season, and then Chris Badland took over and has taken that on. And clearly it's always challenging set of circumstances, but we all understand what we need to do and where we need to be, and clearly we're continuing to work. I speak to him, if not on a daily basis, certainly every other day, and we're driving on and trying to make sure that things are in place. And clearly there's some plate spinning that goes on during this time, but I speak to people and make sure that things are sort of ready to drop once we're able to do that. But nothing really stops. Things have changed. Things have been sort of, the brakes have been put on things in terms of playing, and certainly obviously the revenue streams have stopped, and we have to be mindful of how things may look coming out of this, depending on how long it goes on for. But we have to try and keep things going as much as we possibly can do, and that's what's happening. So yeah, I think things are in a really healthy place at this moment in time. The club know exactly what I want to do. We gave them 4 scenarios, and there were two of the scenarios that were given a green light, and ultimately we've just got to try and hold a little bit until we can we're sort of able to push on again.
Lewis Torode, he said, you've made the club connect with the fans again. Was that something you spoke about with the owner before you took the job?
I think that no, it wasn't. I've not spoken to anybody about that. I think how things came about was really quick. I wanted to come back and manage the football club. I thought I was well placed to sort of do that. It was difficult knew it was going to be tough, but it's anything that's worthwhile is tough to do and tough to achieve, and that's something that you can get your teeth stuck into, and ultimately that's what happened. I didn't sort of speak and outline my plans. I think it was a case of coming in and seeing how things were, and then developing it from there. And like I said, it's been a brilliant 3 years, just over 3 years, and look forward to being able to continue that work as quickly as possible. But like I say, things are ticking over, even though it's just people are furloughed and people are just going through this position now. It's still in good hands. I think ultimately we have to make sure that we do things. The biggest thing for me is making sure that we do things, whatever we do now, we come out of it the other side and we can continue to build. But clearly everything's taking a hit, and players pay, salaries, staff salaries, everybody's salaries within the game are affected and will be affected for a time to come. And we have to protect the football club. There's no two ways about it. That has to be here, and that's going to be the aim of the club and Dave Boddy and everybody, is to make sure that people are looked after it, and we can take them with us and make sure that they're as looked after as they possibly can be, given the set circumstances we have. Because clearly there is no income at this moment in time, so we have to be ready to do what's necessary to make that happen. That's number one priority. People's health, coming through at the other side and making sure that we are still in a position to continue that work, and then take stock. And we're taking stock on a daily basis. I know that's Dave's sort of priority with everything. It's just to make sure that things are looked after as best we possibly can do in the circumstances that we're in.
Question from Anthony Hornsby. He asks, what opposing manager is the funniest / most witty in the opposing dugout during the game?
I think probably I've got to say Carl Robinson. I mean, he's somebody who I had a sort of a relationship with before out of football. We had I had a night out with him in on holiday when we were on holiday. But he's a funny lad. And yeah, he can say some things that we can have a laugh about, because when you're under that sort of that pressure, you can say things that actually make you laugh. But I like Carl. I think he's a good personality and a decent character. So yeah, I think I'd probably have to say Carl, and that's just because I've got there's something in my mind. We've not played them at the start of this season, but it's a fair way off, but it was something that he'd said at the time, and I can't really remember. But I just know it was something that was funny. I think he was talking about him being calm, and he's calmed down on the touchline, and he wasn't he wasn't demonstrating that at the time. We had a laugh about it, but he's a funny lad in general anyway. But yeah, there are some funny managers, good personalities. Paul Warren's another one. He's a good lad. I played with him, had him as a player as well, and signed him. And now he's manager. He's lost a little bit of his personality, but he's a funny lad too. But yeah, there's quite a few good lads in the game.
Jamie Huddlestone has asked, which Wembley gave you the greater buzz? Trade final versus Oxford, or playoff final versus Exeter, and why?
Both games were unique. I think that the first one, the Checkatrade final, came when we were in a really difficult position, difficult place, and to walk out at Wembley. Even before that, I was having a walk with Stevie Taylor prior to the game and in the morning. And I remember getting sent some video footage of the supporters in the train stations on the way down to Wembley, which just gives you that lift. And then to walk out to the wall of noise that we did at Wembley with Stevie Grizovic as well with me was special. It was really special. And then to go on and win it the way we did in difficult circumstances You know, if you look back at the team with Chris Stokes playing at right side centre half and Jordan Turnbull playing at left side centre half, Ryan Haynes played, and Jordan Willis played at right back and ended up coming off, and Dion Kelly Evans came on. You know, it was a team that contained Ben Stevenson and Gail Bagiri-Mana, and you know, the goal that he scored and George Thomas scored, the two goals were worthy of winning the game anyway, and to do that against a side that were actually going for a promotion, they were trying to get promoted on the back of a promotion, and I think that was their second time in a row at Wembley in the Checkatrade final. It took some doing, so that was a big win, and from that point onwards, we used that and able to use that as we've stuck the wood in the door, we can turn it round and make sure that we do the right things now to use that. And the supporters gave us that momentum. You know, they gave us that ability to be able to look at it and say, right, when we're recruiting, look at what happened. This is the potential of the football club. And that was a big, big turning point. So that sticks out from that perspective. The win was brilliant. You win a trophy. And that was down to the previous manager, who was Tony Mowbray and Martin Venus and clearly Russell Slade before me, who got the team to the final. So they deserved huge credit for that. I just picked up the reins at the right time in terms of the final. But to win the game was phenomenal. And the second time, so obviously it was more important. In my mind, it was more important to get back into League One at the first attempt, and we managed to do it. And again, in front of a huge crowd, the players had just started to sort of get some rhythm together in the last month of the season. Whereas prior to that, we'd lost too many games, and the games, you know, you were looking at players and there were injuries, but there were some brilliant performances, and we brought through Tom Bayliss and we brought through Jordan Shipley, and they both contributed greatly. Jack Grimmer's goal, Jordan Willis's goal, and Jordan Shipley obviously getting on the score sheet. And you know, it was just brilliant for them and brilliant for the support, and that just gave us a platform to have a go in the division we'd just been relegated from. And that was tough. You know, it took us a little bit of time to get going, and you know, I think the big thing for us was Brighton and Bakari coming in January that helped us sort of turn things. We needed a bit of creativity, but there were some really good performances, some really good players that we've had over this last few years, and have contributed greatly to the success we've had. And every one of them's contributed. And I think that this season has been, it was exceptional. You know, it's been exceptional. I think the quality of the play is something that I'm proud of, and regardless of anything in terms of results or anything like that, I'm proud of what we've done. You know, I'm proud of what we're doing. I'm proud of the supporters. I'm proud that we've got to the stage now. Very frustrated when things, and I knew things were going to happen the way they've happened. We spoke about it. Training ground needs cleaning. We need to make sure that people, when we lock down the training ground and stop people coming in. But ultimately, you know, if you've not got the lockdown of the country when it first kicked off, then, you know, things are going to start to sort of develop, and that was the case. And that's been frustration. You're looking at it and thinking, there's a virus. How can we stop that from impacting our season and the momentum that we're building up? But ultimately, it is what it is, and that is something as an aside, because of, like I say, I keep going back to the fact that every day you're looking at the numbers of people that are losing their lives, and that's the biggest thing. So that's the biggest reality check that you can have. But ultimately, it doesn't stop you looking at wanting to get back to work and what you can do and what you're going to be doing when you get back in eventually. So, you know, that's the thing for me. And to answer the question, both of them were very important for different reasons. But ultimately, the common denominator was the players put in brilliant performances, and the supporters were magnificent in there in huge number.
Marcus Ward, Jack Findlay, and Martin Coleman have said, if you had to pick one game as manager of CTFC as your favourite, which one would it be? Would it be one of the Wembley games, or is there another game that you see as the favourite game?
The Wembley games stick out, but the Notts County second leg semi-final was phenomenal. The first game against Notts County in the league season at the Rico was special because the first game of the season, and it gives you that sort of momentum. I think Cheltenham away was a huge result, and for different reasons, when we stumbled across the line against Morecambe with a 0-0 draw, that stands out for other reasons, because it got us into the playoffs or confirmed the playoff place. But also, what stands out is Yeovil at home, where we lost 2-6, which was just a freak game and a horrendous result. And again, for the bad reasons, Rotherham away this season, that stands out for those reasons as well. But also that there are games, Tranmere game away from home this year and Wickham away this year was phenomenal. But you know, the way we played at Rochdale, and Rochdale have generally been a tough side to beat, and are a tough side to play, but for us a tough side to beat, and we've done that this season with good football. And listen, to some of the football we played this season has been phenomenal. So I remember a lot of the games, a lot of the football we played. The cup games against Birmingham City stand out as well for obvious reasons. But you know, clearly I think Bristol Rovers away this year in the league, and you know, there's a lot of things that have stood out for me this year. There's been some brilliant football. The players are developing really well. We've sold players and made sure that we've got the ability to be self-sustaining, and that's really important to point out as well. And I think that, you know, it's been fantastic, and hopefully we can continue to do that, and we'll continue to do that once we have the green light.
William Newton has asked, what is your favourite football stadium in the world, and what is your favourite stadium that you've played at or managed at?
Ooh. Right. So, favourite, the best stadium I've played at, and it was for atmosphere, and there are a few now. You know, Emirates is beautiful. Emirates is absolutely fantastic, and to manage there with Coventry was obviously we had a lesson in terms of the game. We scored a brilliant goal. I thought we scored the goal of the night in that game, but it was certainly a lesson in terms of football and the style of football that they played with the players that they had. You know, Old Trafford's close to my heart because that's where I started off playing. It was a brilliant stadium and the atmosphere is great. Anfield's unbelievable. But it's difficult to sort of say. I've played in the Olympic Stadium in Rome. I played in the Olympic Stadium in Munich, where Bayern Munich used to play. Not the Allianz now, because it's obviously a new stadium. But it's played in a lot of good stadia. But clearly, from home, those are the ones that stand out just offhand. The Emirates is a stunning stadium, really.
Reuban Messam has asked, who would you say is the toughest team we've come up against this season and why?
They're all tough in their own right. Every time you set out to plan for a game, you can see that there are, you know, real strengths to sides and what those strengths are. And, you know, there are good teams and in the division. I think that Rotherham have been a tough go for the reasons I outlined. You know, I think that the away from home, I just set the team up wrongly. We just lost Wes Jabello to a season-long injury, and it was a tough lesson. But from those lessons, you learn, and we learned a great deal from that and came out of it. I think Fleetwood have been strong. You know, I think that Joey Barton's built a side there with good, solid professionals, and has a way of going about the job that gets results. They were going. I think Oxford have been pretty good. I thought that was a good game down at Oxford. Although we should have really, from 2-0 up, we should have gone on and won the game, and then 3-2 up as well with Callum O'Hare scoring his first goal for us. But there are some good sides. Portsmouth were good. You know, they sort of, when we were down there, even the home game was a tough game. But to come back, I think that was another game that we didn't mention, that the 3-1 down with 9 men and coming back to draw 3-3 at Fratton Park was an incredible feat. So that's another one of those games. But ultimately there are a lot of good sides in the division. There isn't really one standout other than the Rotherham one for those reasons that we outlined before. But that was really about us not performing to our maximum and dealing with what they had on offer on that day.
Would you say, compared to your first spell in charge, that the league now toughen with stronger teams?
I think things are changing. Clearly, there are a lot of there's a lot more money in the division. You've got Sunderland, Ipswich in there, and Rotherham have come down from the Championship. You've got strong financial backers, really, in those, and the fact that if teams are selling 30,000 season tickets, it makes a huge difference in terms of your ability to compete with the salaries. But ultimately things are going to change. Clearly, through this process, we have to make sure that we do it right, like we do. We do it right all the time. Whilst we're trying to put a product on the pitch, we're mindful of what we need to be doing in terms of the finances. It's good from that point of view. But there are strengths of teams that have been in this division for a few years and have sort of built a decent squads. And the fact now is that you've got teams that have got a lot of their own players. There are some lone players at teams, and you try and sort of make sure that you have as much quality as you possibly can do. And sometimes you have to use those lone players to get a little bit more. But ultimately, things are changing. There are a lot more players that are dropping down and filtering down into the third tier from Championship, from Premier League. And you have that sort of filtering effect down into the team. So I think it's a good league, and I think there are some good teams, and I think there's some decent football played a lot of the time.
Henry Liggins has asked, what is the strangest encounter you've had with a Coventry City fan?
Strangest encounter with a Coventry City fan? I've only got positive stories about meetings with Coventry City fans. I can't think of anything that's strange. Unless he's got one that he knows about. I don't know. I don't think there are any strange ones. I think everybody's positive. Everybody's been brilliant, and can't think of any. But my overriding view has been that everybody has been really supportive and wants the team to do well and just desperate for success, and hopefully we can keep providing that for them.
If you could, this is from Luke Davis, if you could have one of your former teammates from your playing days in the current Coventry City squad, who would you pick and why?
Difficult, I think. I think I always go back. The two players that stand out for me. There's a lot of brilliant players. Say two players that stand out. There's a lot, but certainly Mark Hughes and Brian McClare and Brian Robson. those were top players. But you got an England captain there who was an inspiration and driving force from the middle of the pitch and scored goals and led by example. He was unbelievable, Brian Robson as a player. But Mark Hughes from his when he came back from Bayern Munich and Barcelona, he was much improved player, even though he was an outstanding player prior to that. But I think any one of those would enhance any team. But I'm happy with the players that I've got. I think the players that we've got at this point have been absolutely brilliant. And like I say, continue to keep working with them and look forward to getting back and working with them to get back up to speed as quickly as we can.
Ian Caldecott has asked, who was the toughest Coventry player that you played against? Right, okay. So I think Kill Klein was a tough defender, so direct opponent. Oggy was always in goal, but I scored past him. I kept winding him up about that. I only scored past him once, but that'd do. I think there were some brilliant players. I think there were some really good players that played for Coventry. Mickey Jim was brilliant. A midfield player who was all energy, all action, and
I think Peter Undlove was outstanding. I thought Dion Dublin was brilliant when he came to Coventry. And who was the American? Was it Kobe Jones?
Yeah,
he was a decent player in his day. Dave Phillips did well for you. I played with Dave Phillips when I was at Norwich, but there was some really good players. Brian Burrows, he was one that stood out because he was there for a long time, wasn't he? I think really when you look at things, Kilcline used to kick everything that moved, and if he got near you, he'd boot you. So he would have been one of the ones that you'd think, he was one that you tried to avoid at all costs.
Did you enjoy your trips to Highfield Road as a player?
No, I've got to say it was always tough, and I remember playing reserve games and scoring at Highfield Road. I remember always being tough games against Coventry City. They were always physical games, and the pitch was not always great either. I remember going there with Norwich, and we got beat heavily. I think it might have been 3-1 we lost, but that would have been early Premier League years anyway. But it was always a tough game. Big side, that's what I remember, a big side. But everybody was big compared to me at 5'9". They were a big side and powerful, and like I said, there was a lot of energy, and John Sillett was he always used to have them revved up and ready to go, and clearly things moved on from John and Ron Atkinson and Gordon Strachan, and obviously you had Roland Nielsen in there at one point. Things started to sort of change a little bit with the football. Gary McAllister, I think, was he at one point. They were doing really well and playing some good football. So there's been some really good players there. But no, it was always a difficult place to go and play.
Jess Lyons has asked, what would you say was your biggest achievement as a player?
Well, first and foremost is actually having a career. I think that's the biggest thing, because it's very difficult. Difficult to get there, but then to stay there is tough too. I won trophies that were brilliant, and I was sort of around squads and in teams. But the FA Cup, I won the FA Cup. I won the European Cup Winners' Cup with Man United. I won the Super Cup with Man United. It was a one-legged game with Red Star Belgrade, which was played at Old Trafford because of the war. There was, it was the Community Shield, Charity Shield then, Community Shield now, won that. And the League Cup, won the League Cup Carabao, as is now, with Leicester City. And all those, to win competitions is always difficult. The only thing I didn't win at the level is the league. And I finished third with Norwich in the 92-93 season. And the year I left United, and obviously they went on to win it. But it was I had a really good I had a good experience at every club that I was at, and I won promotion with Rotherham, which was unbelievable, really. From League One, we won League One, or finished second in League One, and went into the Championship and stayed up in the Championship until I left, and then we didn't go down until after I'd left, and that was a big achievement, really. So all those things, I've got sort of good experiences at the clubs I've been at, and all those things. To win trophies is always the most difficult thing, and those are the things that stand out for me.
Jonas Lipman, he's aged 4. He's asked, how can I be a good football player when I play for my local football team again, Albert Village Football Club?
How can he be a good footballer?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are your tips?
So he needs to enjoy it. He needs to really enjoy it. He needs to watch his favourite players and try and copy them in the things that he knows that he wants to do. Have some imagination, use his imagination and imagine things, and have some imagery about when he's playing, because you all do as kids. You imagine yourself being at Wembley in a cup final and scoring goals. So hopefully he can imagine himself being Matty Godden, you know, or Amadou Bakayoko, or whoever he thinks that he wants to emulate and try and copy the things that they do. If he wants to be a defender, clearly the other players, but you know, pick a Coventry City player that he wants to emulate and just try and enjoy things and try things. But at that age, you know, he's got a long way to, or a lot of life to live and to enjoy. But yeah, first protocol is to really enjoy it.
Wes Handley has asked, if money was no object, which one player would you buy, past or present?
Money were no object.
Yeah.
Wow. Right. So. Right. So, if money was no object, there's loads of them. Pelé. All right. Pelé. Johan Cruyff. There'd be Bobby Charlton. There'd be Duncan Edwards. There'd be loads and loads of players that you'd want, like George Best. You know, all these players. But I'm going for Pelé.
Was Pelé one you watched?
Well, no. Pelé was really 1970. I was born in '69, so 1970, 74, and then he was starting to. I think he went over to America, New York Cosmos. But yeah, I mean Pelé. I watched videos of him when I was young, and I remember he scored over 1,000 goals. You know, in senior professional football, and he was somebody who was unbelievably powerful, quick, eye for goal, good in the air, strong. In days where you'd get smashed by people, and that was allowed. And it's likewise with all the top players. Like George Best used to run past people, and you can see him trying to side him down, and he just waltzes past people. His balance was incredible. He was quick. He'd go past you and then put the ball in the back. And Pelé was exactly the same. He scored a lot of goals, and those are the attributes that you look for. Pelé was magnificent. So yeah, I'll go for him. He's not bad.
Yeah. Dominic Jefferson has asked, away from football, which three bands would be on your desert island playlist?
Which three bands? Right, okay. Oasis, probably. Listen, I'm into. I'm not. I listen to quite a bit, wide ranging. Oasis. Dear me, you can tell I'm not sort of. Yeah. Let me come back to that one. I'll have to come back to that one.
That's a good question.
Listen, it's the last question, is it?
Yeah.
Right. I have no idea. I'm not sort of into music that much. It's not something, I'll listen to anything, wide ranging. So.
Should we let you take some TV box sets with Desert Island instead?
Oh, box sets. Box is right. West Wing. That was outstanding when I watched that. Breaking Bad, I enjoyed that. And box sets. The Wire, that was good as well. But there's a lot of box sets that are actually outstanding. I think The West Wing was the first one I watched, but it was brilliant. I still see that now from time to time. But yeah, those are the three I'd say. Box sets are better than music. Oasis are decent. I'm just trying to think what I've got. I've got all sorts on the playlist, but I very rarely listen to it. I've got a Spotify account thing that I listen to sometimes in the car. That if I just fancy listening to something, I'll put it on. But I'm not somebody who's an avid listener of music, because sometimes I listen to classical music as well when I'm just driving, and that's a pretty calming effect.
Good. Okay, that's all our questions from fans. So thank you, Mark. Thanks for your time.
Okay, no problem. Hope everybody stays safe and hope to see everybody soon. And thanks for everybody sending the questions in. Really appreciate it.